Let me start with a simple question. When was the last time you changed your mind about something that truly mattered? Not just adjusting an opinion or agreeing to disagree, but genuinely realizing that you were wrong. For most people, that moment is rare, and that is exactly what Adam Grant explores in his book, Think Again. This book is not about being smarter. It is not about winning arguments. It is about something far more important, the ability to rethink. We often assume that intelligent people make better decisions, but research shows something surprising. Highly intelligent people are often worse at changing their minds. The reason is simple. Intelligence helps us defend our ideas, not question them. Think of the mind as a lawyer. A lawyer's job is to prove their case. Now think of the mind as a scientist. A scientist's job is to discover the truth, even if that means being wrong. Most of us think like lawyers. Adam Grant argues that we should learn to think more like scientists. Certainty feels good. It feels confident. It feels strong. It feels safe. But certainty can quietly trap us. When we are certain, we stop listening. We stop learning. We stop growing. Grant shares many examples of experts and leaders who failed, not because they lacked knowledge, but because they refused to question what they believed they already knew. In a fast-changing world, the most dangerous belief is the idea that you already understand how things work. Adam Grant describes 3 mental roles that keep us stuck. The first is the preacher. When we believe strongly in something, we promote it. We defend it passionately. The second is the prosecutor. When someone disagrees with us, we attack their arguments. We try to prove them wrong. The third is the politician. When our reputation is on the line, we say whatever keeps people on our side. None of these roles encourage learning. The scientist role does. A scientist asks what evidence might change their mind. A scientist asks what they might be missing. A scientist asks what would happen if the opposite were true. Changing our minds is difficult because our beliefs become part of our identity. When someone challenges our beliefs, it feels like they are challenging us as people. That is why arguments become emotional. That is why debates turn personal. That is why facts alone rarely change minds. Adam Grant makes an important point. Confidence is not knowing you are right. Confidence is being secure enough to admit that you might be wrong. Grant also shares research on expert forecasters. These are people whose job is to predict the future. The most confident forecasters were often the least accurate. The best forecasters constantly updated their beliefs. They adjusted their predictions when new information appeared. They spoke in probabilities instead of certainties. They treated their beliefs as drafts, not final versions. One practical lesson from this is to hold your beliefs loosely. Instead of asking how you can prove that you are right, ask what would convince you that you are wrong. That single question creates space for learning. We often admire people with strong opinions, but strong opinions become dangerous when they are not tested, when they are outdated, when they are driven by ego. The goal is not weak thinking. The goal is flexible thinking. Strong thinkers revise their views. Another practical habit is thinking in probabilities. Instead of saying something will definitely work, say there is a certain percentage chance that it will work. This reduces defensiveness. It invites feedback. It keeps the mind open. Rethinking is a critical life skill. Careers change, industries evolve, skills expire. The people who succeed over time are not the ones who know the most. They're the ones who learn the fastest. Rethinking is no longer optional. It is a survival skill. Take a moment to reflect. What belief have you held for years without questioning? Where might you be choosing certainty over curiosity? You do not need an answer yet. Simply notice the question. The core message of Think Again is simple but challenging. Your greatest strength is not being right. It's being willing to be wrong. Progress does not come from defending old ideas. It comes from updating them. In the next part of this series, we will explore how to rethink in conversations, how to disagree without hostility, how to open other people's minds without pushing them away. Rethinking is not weakness. It is wisdom in motion.
Most of us believe that changing someone's mind requires strong arguments. We assume facts will do the job. We assume logic will win. But Adam Grant shows that this approach often backfires. When people feel attacked, they become defensive. When they feel judged, they dig in deeper. Trying to change someone's mind is like trying to push against a locked door. The harder you push, the more resistance you feel. Grant explains that persuasion works better when it feels like an invitation, not a battle. The goal is not to win the argument. The goal is to open the mind. One of the biggest mistakes we make is asking the wrong questions. We ask questions that corner people. We ask questions that expose their ignorance. These questions make people feel small. And when people feel small, they stop listening. Instead, Grant suggests asking questions that spark curiosity, questions that make people think instead of defend. For example, instead of saying someone is wrong, you can ask how they reached their conclusion. Instead of presenting a fact, you can ask what evidence would change their mind. These questions do something powerful. They give people ownership over their thinking. Grant tells the story of skilled negotiators who rarely argue. They listen more than they speak. They ask thoughtful questions. Their secret is simple. They treat disagreement as a joint problem to solve, not a fight to win. Another key idea in Think Again is the concept of intellectual humility. This means openly admitting what you do not know and acknowledging uncertainty. When you say you might be wrong, people feel safer. When you show curiosity, they lower their guard. Grant points out a paradox. The more confident you sound, the less persuasive you may be. The more humble you sound, the more trustworthy you become. One powerful technique is sharing your own thinking process. Instead of stating conclusions, explain how your opinion evolved. When people hear that you have changed your mind before, they feel permission to do the same. Rethinking becomes normal instead of threatening. Grant also discusses the importance of timing. People rarely change their minds when emotions are high. They change their minds when they feel calm and respected. This means some conversations are better postponed. Not every disagreement needs to be resolved immediately. Another mistake we make is assuming resistance means stubbornness. Often, resistance is actually fear. Fear of losing status, fear of being embarrassed, fear of admitting mistakes. Addressing these fears is more effective than attacking beliefs. Respect opens doors that logic cannot. Grant introduces the idea of motivational interviewing. This approach focuses on helping people articulate their own reasons for change. Instead of telling someone what to do, you ask what they want. Instead of pushing advice, you explore their goals. When people hear themselves argue for change, it becomes more convincing. Change feels self-directed, not imposed. Another lesson from Think Again is the danger of labeling people. When you label someone, you freeze their identity. Calling someone stubborn, ignorant, or biased makes growth harder. People live up to the labels they are given. Grant suggests focusing on behavior, not character. Discuss actions and ideas, not personality traits. This keeps conversations productive instead of personal. Grant also highlights the value of disagreement within groups. Teams that encourage respectful debate make better decisions. When everyone agrees too quickly, blind spots grow. When dissent is welcomed, learning accelerates. However, disagreement only works when trust exists. Psychological safety allows people to speak up without fear. Leaders who admit mistakes create cultures of learning.
Leaders who pretend to be flawless create cultures of silence. Another practical takeaway is to separate confidence from certainty. You can speak with confidence while remaining open to revision. Confidence says you have thought carefully. Certainty says you are finished thinking. Grant encourages us to stay curious longer. Curiosity keeps conversations alive. One helpful habit is to replace statements with questions. Questions invite dialogue. Statements invite debate. Changing minds is rarely about one conversation. It is about building conditions where rethinking feels safe. Progress often happens slowly. Sometimes it happens when you are not present. The goal is not immediate agreement. The goal is planting seeds. To summarize this part, changing minds starts with how you show up. It requires humility instead of dominance, curiosity instead of certainty. When people feel respected, they become receptive. When they feel heard, they become open.
In this part, we explore how rethinking shapes success at work and in leadership. Adam Grant shows that progress depends less on talent and more on adaptability. Many people believe that success comes from sticking to a clear plan. But in reality, the most successful careers are built through constant revision. Grant explains that careers are not ladders, they are more like jungle gyms. People move sideways, backward, and diagonally. Those who succeed allow themselves to experiment. They treat each step as information, not a final decision. One common mistake in the workplace is confusing confidence with competence. Loud voices are often mistaken for strong ideas. Grant shares research showing that leaders who speak last often learn the most. By listening first, they collect better information. The best leaders do not try to look smart, they try to get smarter. Another leadership trap is surrounding yourself with people who agree with you. Agreement feels efficient, but it hides risks. Teams that encourage debate make better decisions. Teams that avoid disagreement repeat mistakes. Grant emphasizes the importance of psychological safety. This is the belief that it is safe to speak up. When people fear embarrassment or punishment, they stay silent. When people feel safe, they share ideas and concerns. Leaders play a critical role in creating this safety. Admitting the stakes signals that learning matters more than ego. Grant shares examples of leaders who publicly acknowledged being wrong. Instead of losing respect, they gained trust. Another powerful idea in Think Again is rethinking expertise. Experience is valuable, but it can also blind us. The longer we do something, the harder it becomes to question our habits. Expertise can turn into overconfidence. Grant suggests maintaining beginner curiosity. This means asking basic questions even after years of experience. Fresh eyes often see problems that experts overlook. That is why outsiders sometimes outperform insiders. Grant also discusses how organizations become rigid. Processes designed for yesterday's problems remain unchanged. Companies fail not because they lack talent, they fail because they stop rethinking. The most innovative organizations treat failure as feedback. They run small experiments instead of making massive bets. Experimentation reduces fear. It makes learning faster and safer. Another workplace lesson is the value of flexible goals. Rigid goals discourage adaptation. Grant recommends setting learning goals alongside performance goals. Learning goals focus on improvement, not just outcomes. This mindset encourages exploration. It keeps people open to new information. Grant also challenges the idea of passion as a fixed trait. Many people believe they must find their one true calling. But research shows passion is often developed, not discovered. It grows through skill building and curiosity. Rethinking success means allowing interests to evolve. It means giving yourself permission to change direction. Grant reminds us that quitting is not always failure. Sometimes quitting is a smart decision. Staying committed to the wrong path can be more damaging than changing course. Wise persistence includes knowing when to let go. Another key lesson is separating identity from work. When your job defines your worth, rethinking feels dangerous. But when identity is flexible, growth becomes possible. You can change what you do without losing who you are. Grant encourages leaders to reward learning, not just results. This creates cultures that adapt instead of stagnate. Employees in learning-focused cultures take smarter risks. They share mistakes early. This prevents small problems from becoming big failures. To summarize this part, rethinking is the engine of long-term success. Careers grow through revision. Leadership grows through listening. Organizations thrive when curiosity beats certainty. Learning beats ego.
In this part, we explore how rethinking begins early in life. Adam Grant shows how the way we teach and raise children shapes how open their minds become. Many education systems reward having the right answer. Few reward asking the right question. From a young age, students learn that mistakes are something to avoid. Grades often matter more than curiosity. Grant argues that this approach trains children to fear being wrong, and when people fear being wrong, they stop learning. The goal of education should not be filling minds with facts, it should be teaching minds how to think. Grant highlights the difference between performance goals and learning goals. Performance goals focus on looking smart. Learning goals focus on getting smarter. Students with learning goals take on challenges. They see mistakes as information. Students with performance goals avoid difficulty. They protect their image. This mindset carries into adulthood. It shapes how people respond to feedback at work and in life. Grant shares research showing that praise matters more than we think. Praising intelligence can backfire. When children are praised for being smart, they avoid hard tasks. They do not want to risk losing that label. Praising effort and strategy leads to better outcomes. It teaches children that ability can grow. Another powerful idea in Think Again is teaching intellectual humility. This means modeling how to say, "I do not know." When adults admit uncertainty, children learn that learning never ends. Curiosity becomes normal. Grant also discusses the role of teachers as guides, not lecturers. The best teachers encourage debate. They invite students to challenge ideas respectfully. They reward thoughtful disagreement. Classrooms that welcome discussion create independent thinkers. Classrooms that demand obedience create passive learners. Grant extends these lessons to parenting. Parents often feel pressure to have all the answers, but pretending to know everything can limit children's growth. Admitting mistakes teaches resilience. Grant encourages parents to ask questions instead of giving commands. This helps children develop reasoning skills. Instead of saying what to think, parents can ask how to think. This builds confidence without rigidity. Grant also challenges the idea of fixed parenting rules. What works for one child may not work for another. Effective parenting requires constant adjustment. It requires rethinking assumptions as children grow. Another lesson is encouraging healthy debate at home. Families that discuss disagreements openly raise more open-minded children. Respectful disagreement teaches listening. It teaches empathy. Grant emphasizes that curiosity must be protected over time. Standardization often suppresses it. Lifelong learners keep asking beginner questions. They remain comfortable not knowing. Grant reminds us that learning does not end with school. Adults must continue rethinking their beliefs.
In a changing world, outdated knowledge becomes a liability. Learning how to unlearn becomes essential. To summarize this part, education and parenting should cultivate curiosity. They should make rethinking safe. Teaching children how to revise their thinking prepares them for change. It prepares them for uncertainty.
Up to now, we have focused on thinking and behavior. In this part, we focused on emotions. Adam Grant explains that rethinking is not only an intellectual challenge, it is an emotional one. Many people do not resist change because of logic. They resist it because of fear. One major emotional barrier is the fear of looking foolish. Admitting you were wrong can feel embarrassing. Another barrier is the fear of losing status. Changing your mind can feel like giving up authority. Grant explains that these fears are deeply human. They are tied to our need for belonging and respect. When rethinking threatens our social standing, we avoid it. We protect our image instead. Grant highlights the concept of identity threat. This happens when new information clashes with who we believe we are. If being competent or moral is central to your identity, admitting a mistake can feel like losing yourself. This is why people double down on beliefs. Defensiveness becomes self-protection. Grant shows that reducing emotional threat makes rethinking possible. People open their minds when their dignity feels safe. One way to reduce threat is self-compassion. This means treating yourself with kindness when you are wrong. People who practice self-compassion recover faster from mistakes. They learn instead of shame themselves. Grant also discusses the importance of separating identity from opinions. You are not your beliefs. Beliefs can change without changing your worth. This mental separation creates flexibility. Another emotional barrier is the discomfort of uncertainty. Many people prefer a wrong answer to no answer. Certainty feels calming. Uncertainty feels unsettling. Grant argues that learning to sit with uncertainty is a skill. It can be practiced. Curiosity helps replace anxiety. Asking questions shifts focus from fear to exploration. Grant also addresses emotional reactions in group settings. Public disagreement increases emotional risk. People fear judgment more when others are watching. This makes rethinking harder in teams. Psychological safety reduces this fear. Safe environments allow honest reflection. Leaders who normalize doubt reduce emotional pressure. They make learning acceptable. Grant shares examples of organizations that treat mistakes as data. In these cultures, fear decreases. When fear decreases, rethinking increases. People become more open to feedback. Another emotional obstacle is anger. Anger narrows thinking. When people feel attacked, they stop processing information. Calm emotions support open minds. Grant recommends slowing down conversations when emotions rise. Pausing allows reflection. Rethinking rarely happens in moments of intensity. It happens when people feel calm and respected. Grant also highlights the role of empathy. Understanding emotions helps change minds. Listening without judgment lowers defenses. People rethink when they feel understood. To summarize this part, emotions drive resistance more than facts. Fear closes minds. Safety, compassion, and curiosity open them.
In this final part, we bring all the ideas together. We focus on how to make rethinking a lifelong habit. Adam Grant reminds us that rethinking is not a one-time event. It is a daily practice. The world keeps changing, so our thinking must change with it. One of the most important habits is scheduling time to rethink. Without reflection, beliefs harden. Grant suggests regularly reviewing decisions and assumptions. Ask what you would do differently today.
Rethinking works best when it is intentional. Otherwise, routine takes over. Another key habit is surrounding yourself with people who challenge you. Echo chambers feel comfortable, but they limit growth. Diverse perspectives expose blind spots. Disagreement becomes a source of insight. Grant encourages building a personal challenge network. These are people who care enough to question you. They are not critics trying to tear you down. They are partners in learning. Another habit is keeping your ego small and your curiosity large. Ego wants to protect. Curiosity wants to explore. Grant suggests celebrating thoughtful retractions. Changing your mind should be rewarded, not punished. When rethinking is praised, people do it more often. Culture shapes behavior. Grant also emphasizes updating beliefs like software. Outdated ideas need patches. Clinging to old versions creates problems. Upgrading improves performance. Another lifelong skill is learning how to unlearn. Unlearning requires letting go. This can feel uncomfortable, but growth often does. Grant reminds us that wisdom is not certainty. Wisdom is knowing when to revise. Rethinking also requires patience. Not every belief changes overnight. Small shifts add up over time. Progress often happens quietly. Grant encourages asking better questions throughout life. Questions guide attention. Better questions lead to better decisions. He also reminds us that mistakes are unavoidable. What matters is how we respond to them. Mistakes can be teachers, or they can be prisons. Rethinking turns them into lessons. Defensiveness turns them into burdens. Grant closes with a powerful idea. The goal is not to prove yourself. The goal is to improve yourself. Learning never finishes. Thinking should never freeze. As the world changes, so should our minds. To summarize, progress depends on curiosity over certainty. Growth depends on humility over pride. Wisdom depends on the courage to change your mind. Your greatest advantage is not what you know, it is how willing you are to rethink what you know. Rethinking keeps you adaptable. It keeps you learning. It keeps you human. Remember this final lesson. Being wrong is not failure. Refusing to rethink is. Think again and keep thinking again.
Rethinking is not only about ideas, it is also about people. Adam Grant shows that relationships thrive when curiosity replaces judgment. Rigid beliefs create friction. Flexible minds create connection. Listening is more powerful than convincing. When we ask questions, we invite trust. Influence is not forcing others to change. It is creating space where they want to change. Grant highlights that we often underestimate the power of small nudges. A single thoughtful question can reshape a conversation. Empathy and patience are key. People respond to understanding, not lectures. Avoid labeling others. Labels harden minds. Focus on actions, not character. Discuss ideas, not identity. Recognize the difference between persuasion and debate. Debate can make people defensive. Persuasion can make people reflective. Grant also emphasizes social modeling. When we admit our mistakes publicly, we normalize rethinking. People imitate humility and curiosity more than criticism. Our behavior sets a tone for our communities. Rethinking strengthens bonds when it is practiced collectively. Open-minded conversations build stronger, more resilient relationships.
Rethinking is essential for society. Groups, communities, and nations improve when people challenge assumptions. Grant explains that societies stagnate when conformity dominates. Innovation emerges from dissent and debate. Social change begins with individuals who dare to rethink. Those who question norms create progress. Education, business, and politics all benefit from flexible thinking. Rigid institutions resist adaptation. Grant shares examples of organizations that embrace rethinking. These groups thrive because they update ideas constantly. Cultural progress requires protecting dissenting voices. Criticism is uncomfortable but necessary. Curiosity and humility are contagious. When leaders model these traits, they shape culture. Collective learning is stronger than individual knowledge. Communities that value feedback and dialogue solve problems faster. Grant also reminds us that culture shapes identity. Rigid norms can make people afraid to admit mistakes. Open cultures make people safe to explore ideas. The lesson is clear. Rethinking is not just personal, it is social. It is transformative. Rethinking is a journey, not a destination. Adam Grant emphasizes that personal growth comes from continuous reflection. Habits of curiosity and humility can be cultivated. They are skills, not innate traits. Keeping a learning journal is one practical technique. Writing thoughts, questions, and lessons helps track growth. Mentorship is another powerful tool. Surround yourself with people who challenge your assumptions. Seek feedback consistently. Ask, what am I missing? What could I do differently? Rethinking is enhanced by diverse experiences. New situations stretch the mind. They reveal blind spots. Grant encourages a mindset of scientist in life. Treat beliefs as experiments. Treat failures as data. Self-reflection and deliberate practice reinforce habits. Questioning, listening, and adjusting become second nature. The ultimate outcome of lifelong rethinking is resilience. People who rethink adapt faster. They navigate change with agility. They build richer, more meaningful lives. Rethinking is not only a skill, it is a way of living. Rethinking is not only about ideas, people, and culture. It also applies to how we spend our time. Adam Grant explains that many people stick to routines without questioning them. Work consumes energy, and life can slip by unnoticed. Balance is rarely achieved by planning alone. It is achieved by reflecting and rethinking priorities. Grant encourages asking, am I spending time on what truly matters? Am I protecting curiosity and growth in my life? We often overvalue efficiency and undervalue learning. Focusing only on outcomes can limit creativity. Rethinking your schedule can reveal hidden opportunities. Small shifts in priorities can produce big results. Grant also discusses saying no strategically. Every yes is a commitment, and commitments are finite. Learning to say no allows space for exploration. It preserves time for reflection and growth. Rethinking work-life balance requires flexibility. Life changes and priorities change too. Small experiments in scheduling help uncover better routines. Trial and error is more effective than rigid planning. Grant emphasizes that rest and downtime are essential for rethinking. Mental space fuels creativity and insight. Finally, rethinking priorities is ongoing. It is not a one-time decision. It is a practice of continual adjustment. Leaders face the greatest need for rethinking in times of crisis. Rigid thinking can be disastrous when the world shifts rapidly. Grant explains that uncertainty favors flexible minds. Leaders who cling to old assumptions fail. Good leaders admit what they do not know. They gather information before acting. Grant highlights that emotional stability is critical. Calm leaders help others think clearly. Decision-making under pressure benefits from questioning assumptions. Old solutions rarely solve new problems. Leaders should encourage dissent and feedback even during crises. Contrary opinions are valuable signals, not threats. Grant also emphasizes communicating uncertainty transparently. This builds trust instead of false confidence. Rethinking leadership means adapting strategy quickly. It means prioritizing learning over ego. Leaders who model curiosity inspire teams to do the same. They create cultures where reflection is safe. Another lesson is avoiding groupthink during high-stakes situations. diverse perspectives save organizations from blind spots. Grant shares examples of companies that thrived by rethinking during crises. They experimented, iterated, and admitted mistakes. The result was not chaos, but innovation. The result was survival and growth. In leadership, being right is less important than being adaptable. Rethinking keeps teams resilient. It keeps organizations alive. We have now explored rethinking across personal life, work, relationships, and society. In this final part, we bring it all together. Adam Grant's message is clear. Rethinking is the skill of the future. It is not enough to accumulate knowledge. You must also know when to update it. We have learned that rethinking requires humility. It requires curiosity. It requires emotional safety. We have learned that rethinking strengthens relationships. It fosters trust and collaboration. We have learned that rethinking fuels success. It helps individuals and organizations adapt. We have learned that rethinking is a lifelong habit. It requires reflection, experimentation, and openness to feedback. To practice rethinking, start small. Ask better questions. Reflect on decisions regularly. Listen more than you speak. Admit when you might be wrong. Celebrate the moments you change your mind. Treat mistakes as information, not failure. Reconsider your priorities. Challenge assumptions in your work, your life, and your community. Surround yourself with people who encourage growth. Remember, being right is temporary. Being willing to rethink is permanent. Your mind is not a fixed object. It is a living tool. Sharpen it. Update it. Keep it flexible. Rethinking is courage. It is wisdom. It is freedom. Think again, and keep thinking again.